Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the series on the 1983 300D. Let me close the hood so you can see this beautiful car. There we go. So today we're going to get it up on the lift and start work on the suspension. Now, in the last video, I showed a bunch of parts I'd gotten in. We have new shocks, new steering components, new ball joints, new sway bar end links. Lots of parts going on here. So let's go ahead and just get the car up in the air and start the inspection and disassembly. First thing we're going to do, guys, is inspect the brakes. I remember when I did the initial inspection, all the brakes appeared to be new. So we're going to just take another look at that and make sure. And these are original bunt wheels, which are beautiful condition. These haven't been repainted. They're absolutely amazing condition. Very hard to find a bunt wheel that looks like that when it's 40 years old. Okay, yeah, as I suspected, this is a new Bendix caliper, and there's a new brake hose. And guys, you'll see there's surface rust on the rotors. That's normal. That's what rotors do. But this rotor was replaced at the same time as these new Bendix calipers were installed. You can see there's no lip on the rotor. See how thick it is? All right, so that's a new brake system, and I can see these are the brake pad wear sensors. Those sensors were also replaced, and that, of course, is a new brake hose. But we have, let's see, yeah, the upper control arm. That's absolutely beautiful condition. Sure, there's some dirt and grime up here. It's a 40-year-old car, but what we're looking at are the bushings here. You can see those are amazing. Don't need to change that. Here's the original shock. We're going to take that out. And let's go ahead and get up on the lift and look underneath the car. And before I raise it up, I'm over here on the passenger side. This bunt wheel is equally beautiful. That has not been refinished. That's an original wheel. Excellent condition. And I can see, the Bendix brakes, these were already done. So the brake system has already been addressed. That's a new brake hose. Yeah, the bushings up here on the upper control arm. Beautiful condition. Absolutely no need to change that. You can see the boot here. It's beautiful condition. Of course, yeah, we want to get the old original shock off of here. And again, these rotors, that's totally normal. Rotors always get surface rust on them like that. But this rotor, there's absolutely no lip. This was also replaced when the brakes were done. All right, let's go ahead and raise it up. Okay guys, we're under the car and I was about to start disassembling the steering linkage. You know, I got new tie rods, new center link, new steering shock. And guys, I actually made a mistake. These have already been replaced. For example, look how stiff this is. That has already been replaced. And these tie rods have too. I was not expecting that. Yeah, you can see those boots. Yeah, they look new. Yeah, I totally was not expecting that. I ordered all replacements expecting that these had not been done. Yeah, these tie rods, I can't even turn them. They're so tight. Yeah, those are definitely good. Those are not even worn out at all. The steering shock is also good condition. Okay, so I guess I need to return those parts because someone already did this and I was not expecting to see that. Because when I did my initial inspection, I just thought it was the old original parts up there. And it is in fact not. However, I do see that they haven't done the ball joints. See, we got a crusty old ripped up ball joint boot there. The ball joint boot is supposed to look like that. So we're going to put those in. And yeah, you can see over here too, that ball joint boot is all ripped up and corroded. Those are definitely 100% the original. So we definitely want to do the ball joints and shocks. But yeah, these These tie rods are absolutely, that's already been done. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to start disassembly over here. I want to take our rotor off, our hub off, disconnect it from the control arm here, our steering knuckle, and then we'll get our shock and steering knuckle out to get our ball joints out. All right, guys, to get this hub off, to get access to our ball joint, first we need to remove our brakes, and that's just a 19 millimeter. I'll go ahead and loosen them up here. There we go. Yeah, that was totally unexpected about that steering linkage. I did not think that had been replaced, but well, that's good. The car was obviously being maintained. Okay, now right here we're also going to need to disconnect our tie rod, and instead of disconnecting the tie rod, I'm just going to disconnect this. This is basically an arm that connects to your hub. There's a 19 millimeter here and here, and that's what the tie rod connects to. That allows you to steer or turn the wheel. So we're going to just disconnect this. All right, we'll go ahead, loosen these up. There we go. Now, I want to get this brake rotor off before I disconnect this, because once I disconnect this, our hub will just flop around loosely. So let's go ahead and get the brake caliper off. All right, this is also going to allow me to inspect the brake pads. Let's go ahead and get this caliper off of here. Oop, there we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just put a wire right through here and tie it up to our sway bar. That way it's not hanging from the hose and won't damage the hose. And the way I do that, I just take our caliper and I have some thick gauge wire and I just run right here. Oh, look, those are brand new brake pads too. See how thick those brake pads are? Yeah, so this was recently serviced, and I'm guessing the previous owner did this service prior to selling me the car. So it definitely has new brake pads, new calipers, new rotors. We're also going to inspect the wheel bearings, make sure those are in good condition. Now that rotor can just safely hang right there. There we go. See, I have it around the sway bar. It can just hang there while I disassemble everything down here. All right, this is the grease cap here. And we're just going to tap this off. And that way we can inspect underneath it. Plus we have to remove the rotor from the spindle. But if it needs to be repacked with grease, we're going to see that in a second. Oh, look at that. They even repacked the bearings. Look at all that fresh grease in there. Okay. Obviously this car is being serviced correctly. Yeah, you can see all the fresh grease packed down in here. Okay, here's the radio interference pin. It's just a little copper pin. We're going to take that pin out. There we go. Now we're going to repack with fresh grease. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe off some of this grease. And this is your spindle nut. This is what holds your rotor onto the car, and it's a 5 millimeter. We're just going to loosen that, and then this will spin off. Let's see. There we go. And these are only hand tight, because if you over tighten them, it preloads your bearing too much. So this was also the correct tightness. So whoever was working on it actually correctly tightened them down by hand. They were not over tightened. All right, this will allow me to go ahead, pull the bearing and rotor off. Sometimes these can be a little sticky. Oh, there we go. That one comes right off. All right, yeah. See all the fresh grease on our spindle? And here's the bearing. Right here, I can see there's a bunch of fresh grease down inside our hub. So that has already been taken care of. All right, let's set this aside. And I'm going to re-grease this when we put it back on. Let's go ahead and wipe off some of the grease and inspect our spindles. Yeah, those are beautiful condition. Now we have 3 small Allen head bolts right here. And those hold this, this is a dust shield, which we're going to clean up in the parts washer, and we're going to refinish some of the suspension in the original satin black or semi-gloss black once we get it all disassembled. So we'll go ahead and loosen those. There we go. Now we'll spin those out of there. There we go. Okay, so here's our steering knuckle. Now we can go around the back side and undo our tie rod connecting arm right here with those 19 millimeters. Now if you remember, I already got them loose before. Oh, not loose enough. There we go. Now, once this comes off, we'll be able to move that tie rod out of the way. Boy, that one's on there. Let me get a bigger wrench. There we go. This one will get it out. All right, now, see how this tie rod will just spin out of the way? See, look how stiff that is. That's a new tie rod. It'll just almost stay in place. Yeah, when they're worn out, that thing would just flop around. That thing's already been replaced. See how stiff that is? Excellent ball joints in the tie rod. All right, we'll just move that out of the way. Move it down here. All right, now we need to go ahead and get this knuckle out of here. All right, what we want to do now is lower the car to the ground. We'll put a jack stand under it, and then we're going to disconnect our upper control arm nut right here. And I want to refinish these in the semi-gloss black. You see they're a little crusty, got a little surface rust on them, but that does not hurt anything. This is just a big steel piece. But what I've done off camera, I went ahead and did the same thing over here, disassembled everything on this side of the car. So let's go ahead and lower it down. You see there's our tie rods. They're both disconnected. And let's go ahead and lower the car down and get a jack stand under here. All right, you can see we have the lower control arm resting on our jack. And that is a safety measure because what we're going to do, we're going to disconnect this 17 millimeter from the upper control arm. And once we do that, the only thing holding in this spring from launching out of the car is the shock. Now, the shock, if they're in good condition, which these are, that will hold it in place. Now, the jack stand is just in case, you know, for some reason, if that shock were to break, that jack stand will hold the spring in there. So let's go ahead and disconnect the upper control arm. Then we'll spin this around and get access. See, there's our crusty ball joint. And we'll take this nut off and push our, get our ball joint disconnected from the lower control arm. All right, that's really the best view I can give you guys. Now this is a 17 millimeter. We'll just spin that off. Now we want to raise the car just a little bit, just to put a small gap between the lower control arm and our jack stand. And then we want to break this loose with a ball joint separator. Okay, there we go. We got to get a little gap under there, and just for safety, I'm going to put our nut back on there. All right, there we go. So we have a jack stand, our nut loosely on here, and the shock to keep that spring from coming out. All right, let me get our ball joint separator. All right, guys, here is our separator. Now, it's important you put a little grease right on there. That way we don't risk damaging this boot when we slip it over here. Now, all this does, you just slip it right over here, like that. And I'm going to put a little, actually I'm going to take this nut back off of here. We're just going to leave that off. Okay, now what I'm going to do is put a little spacer in here to take up the gap. All right, we'll just put the spacer right in here. All right, there we go. Now what we want to do is tighten this bolt down right here. There's a bolt right here on the top. We're going to tighten that down, and that is going to separate the knuckle from the upper control arm. All right, there we go. That's separated. Now this is loose. Wipe that grease away. All right, now let's go ahead and get the lower ball joint detached. Now that this is detached, I can pull this out of here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put the jack stand on the other side of the car and lower it down, and that way this sway bar right here connects to the other side of the car, and it will lift up our control arm here. And let me get that out of there. Okay, watch. When I lower the car, the jack stand's on the other side, and when the suspension compresses on the other side, it's going to lift up this control arm because the sway bar runs through the car and connects to the other side, and the sway bar will lift up on the upper control arm. Here we go. All right, there we go. Did you guys see that? Now we can easily take this out. Beautiful. All right, now we have our steering knuckle. See how loose that ball joint is? That thing is worn out. What happens when the boot breaks and wears out, a bunch of dirt and debris get down in the ball joint, and then from moving around, it slowly wears it out, and the tolerances aren't there anymore, and it just gets sloppy. So we need to go ahead and remove this nut and then get our ball joint separator. All right, guys, this is a 22 millimeter. Go ahead and take that off of there. Now let me show you the ball joint separator. Okay, here is our ball joint separator. Now this is made by OTC Tools. It's actually listed as a small Pitman arm puller, but it's part number OTC, part number 8149. And what this does, we unscrew it here, and we can simply slip it over the end of our control arm, and then that bolt presses down onto the ball joint. There we go, like that. Now when I run this down and tighten it, it is locked onto the control arm, and it literally pushes the ball joint out. Now you want to hold your steering knuckle when you do this, because it's going to fall out and you don't want it to hit the ground. All right, so we're just going to hold it. There we go. And we just pushed it right out of there. And there we go. There's our crusty old worn out ball joint. All right, let's go ahead and get this knocked out. All right, this is how you knock out a ball joint. Also, you can see here's some spindles that I pulled from another vehicle that I've already refinished back in the factory semi-gloss black. We're going to do that to these spindles also. But you just want to put it in your vise. There we go. Let me tighten our vise back down. There we go, that's in there. Now we want to get a slug. Let me zoom up here. Okay, there we go. You can see there's our ball joint right there. Now what you want to do is take a big steel slug and you put it on there and you bang that thing out. It's pretty barbaric, but that is how you do it. All right, now guys, it's going to be tempting to put your hand here and hold on to this as you bang it out. But if that presses through and your hand is there, it's going to take your hand with it and it's going to really injure you. So do not hold on to this. What you want to do is just step back and take a bunch of swings. And you have to put a tremendous amount of force into this. Now we've already gotten it to move a little bit, Probably 3 or 4 more hits. Okay, probably 1 more hit. I'll show you where we're at. See how that ball joint is almost banged all the way out of there? It's a press fit, meaning the tolerances between the ball joint outside diameter and the inside diameter of our hole are so close or so similar that you have to press in the ball joint, and friction actually holds it in there. All right, there we go. There's that crusty old ball joint. All right, let's go ahead. I want to clean up and refinish our spindle. There we go. And repaint it, the factory semi-gloss. We'll clean it up in the parts washer, and then we'll knock our new ball joint in. All right, this is my trusty old 1960s parts washer. They guys, they don't make them like this anymore. These things are amazing. Just get everything cleaned up real good. And then we're going to take this outside and refinish it, repaint it. All right, let's get this dried off and then refinish it. Guys, I've got a rag soaked in acetone. Acetone is a pretty strong solvent, and it will remove any grease at all from here and get our surface prepped to refinish. Cleaning the ball joint area real good. All right, there we go. This is ready to be refinished. Let me repaint this and I'll be right back. There you go. That's our before shot. And there we go. There's the after. You can see it's nicely refinished in the original semi-gloss black. All right, let's go ahead and get the new ball joint pressed in. All right, guys, we're over here at the hydraulic press. This is a 20-ton press. You remember I said that ball joint was a press fit. So we have to press it back in there. So we get our new ball joint. And we're going to put our spindle right up here. Our steering knuckle. Now, I'm going to put a spacer right below it, like that. And you can put it here. Now we have a tool. So you see how this is a curved arm here? This tool has a cutout. And what we can do is put it over the ball joint, and it goes around our curved arm. I'll show you that closer in a second, how that works. And we get this centered over here. All right, and now we can press in this ball joint. And I'll go ahead and I'll show you more detail here in a second. Let me get this in place. Okay, there we go. All right, this is what's going on here. So, see our steering knuckle. There you go. See how it curves inside the tool like that? And this tool is pressing on the lip around the edge of the ball joint. And the ball joint, we have these knurled. See the knurls, the little teeth there? When we apply 20 tons of pressure, well, I don't know if we're going to apply that much, but this is a 20-ton jack. I'm not sure how much weight is required to push this in. But we'll pump it, and that ball joint is going to press down into there. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, you can see I'm zoomed in here. Now I'm going to pump the jack handle up here. See those knurls? See how they're pressing in? Almost, not quite. Almost, you just want to bottom it out. Couple more presses. There we go. It is now bottomed out. So let's loosen this and I'll show you our ball joint. There we go. We have a fresh pressed in ball joint. See how it's flush all along the bottom? That's exactly how you want it. All right, let me knock out the other one and I'll be right back. Okay, before we put those back in the car, I want to go ahead and clean up our brake dust shields. And we're going to go ahead and refinish these also. All right, let me get this other one, then I'll refinish them. I'll be back in a second. Okay, just because I like, really clean suspension, I went ahead and got some acetone and cleaned off all the parts here and then refinished them in the original, semi-gloss black like they would have come from the factory. Now we want to go ahead and get our ball joint and spindle reattached. And basically, we're just going to put that back up there and put the nut on. Okay, that's really the best angle I can get for you guys, but our new ball joint is going to go back under there. And we're going to put the nut on here to hold it still there. Okay, now we want to tighten that down and then reattach the upper control arm. Now this is a 22 millimeter. We're just going to hit it with our impact and then we'll get the torque wrench and torque it down. All right, let's go ahead and reattach the top. Let me get the torque wrench, we'll torque this down. All right, let's see if I can get this upper control arm through here. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get our nut started. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay, that's in there. Now I'll tighten and torque both of these down, and then we can move to removing the shock. Okay, we have our steering knuckle back in the car and our ball joint installed. Now let's move to the shocks. I need to disconnect them from the top, but first before we do that, I'm a little OCD. I went ahead and refinished the hubs in semi-gloss black. And even though these were new rotors, that protective coating comes from the factory on these. So I went ahead and sanded off that surface rust and reapplied that factory coating just so it'll look nice under the car. All right, for the shocks, these are the originals. I can tell they have never been off the car. And if you look right here, here's where the shock comes through. And there's two 17 millimeter nuts there. One tightens down the bushing up here, and then the other one's a lock nut. So to get those off, you need to have a shaved down 17 millimeter wrench. See how I shaved that down where it's thin? We can then put that down here on the bottom, and because it's shaved down, it won't interfere with our socket, removing the one on the top. All right, there you go. There's our top one. Now, if I'm lucky, this one's going to come right off too. There we go. Now we get all new hardware with our new Bilstein shocks, and we're going to take off our cover plate. And there's the bushing. Now, guys, these bushings, I've actually never seen one of these fail. And sometimes I like to reuse these original bushings on the top rather than the new Bilstein bushing, because these are already they've been in there so long, they're molded really nice and they fit in there really nice. But we'll address that, take a look at that once we get to installing the shock. Now we need to go and disconnect it down at the bottom. Okay, to get the shock out, we're just gonna turn our spindle, our steering knuckle that way. And now we can pull the shock down. There we go. All right, there we go. Now there's two 10 millimeter nuts that hold it in there. There's one on the back side. go. These are just little 10 millimeter. Now you have to use a 12-point socket. See, it's 12. I don't know if you can see it. That's a 12-point because those are 12-point bolts back there. Now let's go ahead. Should have done the front one first. Okay, there we go. Now let's get this front one out of here. All right, now this shock will come right out. There we go. Okay, here's our original shock, and you can see under here, see how that bump stop has started to deteriorate and come apart? And you can see our new Bilstein, we have a fresh, nice new bump stop over under there. So let's go ahead and get this back on the car. Now, we also have new hardware. Let's see here. There you go. And Bilstein sends, there's a new upper bushing. It goes here, and a bushing that goes on top. And they give us the new 12 millimeter or 12 point nuts that go in, or bolts that go in there, along with lock washers. So let's go ahead, get this guy installed. Okay, so first let's go ahead, get our shock up in here. And first we're going to attach the front part of the shock right here. Here we go. And let me show you one more thing. Bilstein also preloads or pre-applies the blue Loctite. And if you don't have that on there, it's important to put it on there. All right, let's get this guy in here. All right, we actually don't want to run it all the way down yet. All right, now, want to compress it. Come on. All right, pull it forward. There we go. Now we can get the back bolt in there. There we go. All right. Now we'll compress it again and put it up through the body of the car. Okay. There we go. Now we can tighten down this one finally. All right. Good. There we go. Starting to look nice in here, isn't it, guys? Refinish the hub, refinish the suspension, new ball joint, new Bilstein shock. Let's go reattach the top of the shock. All right, you can see the top of the shock is poking through there. Now we want to put the suspension under a little bit of a load so it sticks through a little farther. And to do that, I just went ahead and I put the jack stand back under the car and lowered the lower controller onto it. That way it loads the suspension and we can actually get enough threads coming through the top. Now, this is actually the new bushing that Bilstein sent us. And let's see how it fits in here. Okay, actually that goes in there really nice. So we'll go put our plate on the top. Bilstein provides a new cover plate. And instead of the two nuts like before, we have one lock nut now. That's what Bilstein is using now. So we'll put that on there. Now here's kind of the tricky part. In order to tighten that down, we have to keep the shock from spinning. And see where we can put a little wrench on the top of the shock. We need to hold it still while we tighten that down. And here's how we do that. We'll get a little wrench. And this is a ratcheting 17 millimeter. So far it's not spinning. Oh, there it goes, it started spinning. So we're gonna put our wrench on there to hold it still. There we go. Let me zoom in so you guys can see that. There we go, our little This goes on top there, and our wrench just holds it still. And then we can tighten it down. Now you just want to tighten it until your bushing starts to squish a little, and then you're good. There we go. We've got a little squish on our bushing, perfectly installed. All right, let's knock out the other side. All right, guys, you'll notice the other side's a little different. Top of the shock is down underneath here, underneath our AC manifold and next to our air filter housing. So I've temporarily just pulled the AC manifold out of its retaining bracket there. Now, also, this is a job we're going to do anyway on this car. You'll see how that's loose? That's very common on a diesel Mercedes. Underneath here, there's 3 bushings that are designed to fail. They're rubber bushings, and what they do, they absorb the vibration from the engine into the air filter housing. And those bushings, you have to replace them like once a year, and we're going to go ahead and do it on this car. See how it's loose? We'll go ahead and do that, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So first thing we want to do, we're going to disconnect our hose right up here, our breather tube. There we go. We're just going to kind of turn that up out of the way. Now we're going to undo our clips. All right, now we need to get our 10 millimeter, take our lid off. All right, here we go. This lid comes off. And I see there is a fresh air filter in there, and it's a genuine Mercedes-Benz air filter, which I think is made by MAN. So let's see how hard this thing is to get out of here. There we go. Yeah, you can see that's a new filter. See how clean and fresh it is? So we don't need to install another filter. And guys, you want to check these filters like maybe once every couple of years. You know, it used to be back in the 70s and 80s, it was much dustier. There were dirt roads, not every road was paved, and these air filters would get dirty. But now, you're never going to drive one of these cars on a dirt road unless you live out in the country, and these things really never get dirty. So just check it every couple of years. Let's take this guy out of here. Next thing we want to do is remove this accordion tube right here. This is where the air intake is. On the front of the car, air comes in there and goes into the filter. So this little accordion tube just does exactly that. It accordions. We can pull it down and up. There we go. Pulls right off of there. All right. Now down inside here are 3, I need an extension. There are 3 10 millimeter nuts. And those are actually screwed to those bushings. Let me show you these. If you look down here, see there's one there, one right there, and there's one back there. Those are what actually hold it to the bushing. I think this is the bushing that's broken. Yeah, that one's not holding. We'll see once we take it off of here. Okay, all you do, take your 10 millimeter, put it down in here. We're going to take those 3 nuts off. Okay, this is now disconnected from the mounts. Now the next thing we want to do, let me get our nuts out of here. Next thing we want to do is disconnect it from the turbo. Now the way this works, see you have your air cleaner, the air comes into here, it goes through the filter, then it comes out the bottom, shoots down here, and this is a tube. There you go, see it's a U-shaped tube and it shoots into the turbo right there. So what we want to do, if we look down here, yeah, right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. That is a band clamp, there you go, around the front of the turbo, and that's a flathead screwdriver loosens that. So let's loosen that, and then we can lift up this whole mechanism, pull it forward off the turbo, and it comes out of the car. All right, we're going to go down here, the long screwdriver. There we go. And we're just going to loosen that band clamp. All right, there you go. It's now loose. Now this whole thing, since it's disconnected, is gonna lift up and we're gonna wiggle it off the front of the turbo. All right, there we go. All right, let me show you what is going on. So you have this T-bracket right here, and there you go. There's the bushing. See, those were where those 3 bolts are, the 3 nuts were attached from inside the air filter housing. And you can see this bushing right here. See, you can move them, but if you unscrew them, they just unscrew like that. Oh, there you go. So there's a hole in the front and the back. On this car, we're using the front holes. There's another one here. Let's see if we can unscrew that one. I need to get my wrench to get that one out. But you can see this one right here was broken. And that's what they do. They're designed to fail. Here's why. This bracket is attached to your intake manifold. If that was solidly mounted, then the vibrations would cause your intake manifold to crack. So Mercedes put these rubber isolators or rubber bushings, and when this engine shakes, it absorbs the vibration that goes through this bracket and protects your intake manifold from cracking. So anyway, let's get these off and we're gonna put some brand new bushings on here. All right, just got some channel locks here. See if we can get this one off. Okay, that one seems to have broken too. And so anyway, what you do, you get the channel locks and you put them on here and you adjust them right where that metal plate is. This is what happens if they break on you. All right, there we go. Whoop. There we go. Now you can spin it off there. See how I put the channel locks on there? See, this was just on the bottom of the bushing. That's what will fail. That's how they fail. There we go. See how that was in here? And you can see the Mercedes emblem, genuine Mercedes part. Anyway, let's get this other one out. There we go. Got that one loose. And we just screw this one out. Also, everything else down in here looks fantastic. All right, here's how easy it is, guys. Here's our brand new bushings. And we're just gonna screw them in there. This is like a maybe 20-minute job. I guess I've been working on it for about 10 minutes now. And now the first time you do it, it's probably take a little longer, but this is stuff you need to know how to do so you can do it at home. 10mm and a screwdriver. That's all I had to do this, and some channel locks. All right, screw those down. Okay, good. Also, here's the front of our turbo. I want to feel what that feels like in there. Yeah, that turbo feels really good. Spins freely, no jiggling in the intake shaft or the main shaft. Turbo shaft feels really good. Okay, now the reason we took this air cleaner off is to get access to the shock. And you can see now our shock tower is visible here. We're going to move our AC manifold out of the way. Let's put a wrench on there. There we go. And hopefully this one comes off as easy as the other one. There we go. Nice. Okay, that shock is now free. You saw on the other side of the car how I just pull the shock through and detach it from the bottom. I'm going to knock that out real quick. I'm also going to wipe it down in here a little bit, clean some of the soot out, and then we're going to reassemble the shock and put our air filter housing back on. All right, I just want to clean up down here a little bit before we put everything back together. Just have some acetone on a rag. This stuff is a great cleaning agent. All right, there we go. Let's get our bushing out of here. There we go. All right, got our new shock with bushing and cover plate, and got it down in here. Refinished the suspension. Starting to look really nice in here, guys. All right, now before I put our air cleaner housing back on here, I was inspecting some things down here, and this is the turbo wastegate blow off. See, it's a tube that goes down here and connects right up here. And I see there's some cracking. Yeah, there's some cracking that has started in it. And if these crack and get a split in it, then you're gonna lose your boost pressure and you'll lose power. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this off and replace it. It's just a clamp there and a clamp down here, and we can replace this hose. All right, we got a little clamp right here. That's the original one. Sometimes these clamps will break, so we replace them with a hose clamp. But let's see if we can preserve this one. Okay, there we go. Got that clamp off there. Now let's just see if we can get this hose twisted off here. Might have to cut it. It's been on there for so long. There you go. Got it off. All right, now I need to disconnect it down there at the bottom, which you guys really can't see. It's just another clamp down there. So I'll come back in a second. Okay, I got this hose off. Not sure if you guys can see the cracking. Yeah, you can see. See how it's kind of dry rotted? So we want to replace this. But those little clamps, what you do, you pinch them and they loosen up. And when you let go, they tighten up. Ford actually uses these on a lot of their hoses. I have some on my Ford 7.3 diesel truck, little clamps just like this. But let's go ahead, get this hose replaced. Okay, after a bunch of cussing, I got those original little clamps back on there, and we got a fresh new hose on there, and the clamps are connected correctly. There we go. So now we can go ahead and put our air filter housing back on. All right, to get this back on, I just want to come down here and let's see, go around this AC manifold. There we go. And then a little wire here. There we go. There we go. And back onto our new grommets. Boom. All right, guys. Now let's go ahead and tighten our band clamp down there. Put our 10mm nuts back on here. Put our filter and lid back on. All right, guys, that is back together. Now, I want to show you how it's, remember it was real loose before? Now watch. See how tight and firm that is? That's how you want it with new grommets in there. Okay, we are done with the shocks and the air cleaner housing assembly. Let's go put the hubs back on and the dust shields. Okay, our dust shield is still drying, still a little wet. But it won't hurt it to go ahead and put it on there. And we want to apply some blue Loctite. There you go. Those are the little bolts that hold it in there. It's important to add blue Loctite. Go ahead, get this back on here. And like I said, that's still a little wet. It's still drying, but it'll be fine to install. It'll dry overnight. Now you don't want to crank these down really tight with a lot of torque because you'll break them. They're just little bitty bolts. That's it. You just snug them up there. Okay, next let's go ahead and apply some fresh grease to our spindle, and I'll grease our bearing, and we'll get our rotor and hub back on the car. All right guys, this is just Timken wheel bearing grease. Any wheel bearing grease will do. Let's go ahead, get some back on here, like that. Perfect. Now I want to pack our bearing. So if I come back over here, sorry, I got my tools everywhere. If I come back over here, I'm going to get some grease, and we're actually going to pull out our wheel bearing, and we're going to repack that with grease. What you do, you just pack it against your hand, and it pushes the grease up into the rollers. See how it's starting to squirt out the sides? There we go, then we'll flip it over and go from the other side. All right, we'll take our leftover, put it right around our hub. All right. Let's put our bearing back in there. Okay, now we can get this back on the car. Okay, now we can take our hub and see how it's nicely repainted. That's how they look from the factory, and that coating had just worn off. But like I said, the rotors are actually new, so I just went ahead and applied that protective coating. All right, perfect. Now we want to wipe away the grease from our threads, and we want to get our spindle nut back on here. Now, this spindle nut, guys, it is flat on one side and not flat on the other side. And you can see it is not, it's made to put on there hand tight. See, it's a strange shape because you want to get it on there and adjust it just till you get the play out of the bearings. And I'll show you what that looks like. So you're going to go hand tight, and I usually use a little Allen to just spin it down. All right, now we're going to back it off. Now here's how you adjust it. You hear there's play in there? You want to tighten it by hand just till you get the play out. Still a little play in there. All right, no play. See if I back it off, hear the play. Right there, that's exactly where you want it. Now, you want to set your lock nut. And that is now locked in place. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get our radio interference pin back in here. I think this is just for when people used to listen to a lot of AM radio. It knocks out some of the interference. Not sure how it does that, but that's what it does. We just push that into the end. All right, let's go ahead and get our dust cap. Now we want to clean out the old grease in our dust cap, and we want to apply some fresh grease in there. All right, we got the old grease out of here. Let me go get some fresh grease, and then we'll tap this back on. Okay, there we go. We just applied some fresh grease down in there. We'll put this on here. And now we want to get a rubber mallet and actually tap that back into place. And you can see where some of the paint has come off our dust cover. I'm just going to apply another quick coat on there. Not that it matters, I'm just OCD like that. All right, let's go ahead and wipe any grease off here. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go around back and reattach our tie rod. Now here are the 2 bolts that reattach our tie rod arm right there. You want to apply blue Loctite. Now notice under here, guys, you have a skinny side and a thick side. Your bolts are 2 different sides. The long bolt goes over here through the thick side. And then our short bolt goes through the skinny side. Oh, there we go. Now we'll run those down with the Ugga Dugga and then torque them. All right, let me get my torque wrench on those. Okay, now we can reinstall our brake caliper and then we're done. I'll need to go knock out the other side. I'll do that off camera and then I'll show you the completed product. All right. Okay, let me get the bolts attached behind there and then we're done with this side. Now again, with the bolts, you want to apply blue Loctite. It doesn't take much, guys. Just a little drop will do it. That's good. That's all it takes. All right, we're back here behind. We're reattaching our caliper. By the way, you can see our nice new ball joint. And we're going to put these caliper bolts, get this caliper lined up here. There we go. All right, we'll just run these down and then we'll torque them. All right, there's the torque wrench. There we go. All right, we are done with the driver's side. There we go, guys. Cleaned up the suspension, repainted everything in the semi-gloss black, repacked our wheel bearings, put fresh grease on there, repainted our steering knuckle, installed a new Bilstein shock. Back here, installed our brand new ball joint, and it's starting to look really nice now. All right, let me go finish the passenger side. Okay, we are done with the passenger side. Got everything reinstalled, refinished the hub, treated some of the crustiness on that rotor, refinished the rotor hat there, repacked the bearings, refinished the suspension in the semi-gloss black, new Bilstein shock, and back here we have our nice new ball joint. And there we go, guys. That was wasn't too bad, but it's a lot of work. But the front end of this car is now ready to go. Looks super nice in there now. And we also replaced those air cleaner housing bushings and the turbo wastegate hose up in the engine compartment. So there we go. That's it for this video. In the next video, we'll be doing rear shocks, rear sway bar end links, and refinishing some of the suspension back there. So, hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time. Take care.